All right, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin with some breaking news. Markets actually soaring today as President Trump suggests we're not going to be in this conflict in Iran much longer, hinting he's even willing to get out without fully securing the Strait of Hormuz, leaving Europe to go at it themselves. Also, a federal judge today ruling that the construction of President Trump's White House privately funded Ballroom must stop unless Congress funds it. It's private donations. The Justice Department, though, is appealing the ruling. And tomorrow, April Fool's Day, so naturally that would be when Artemis 2 sends their launch crew, sending 4 astronauts on a 10-day mission around the moon. For comparison, though, I seem to remember when Apollo 13 blew up in space. We were told it flew around the moon and it made it back in 6 days. That was in 1970 with nothing more than an abacus and a slide rule to calculate their thrust projections, but whatevs. But first, Gen Z can't even complete a full workday, yet they're the most critical and least patriotic this nation has to offer. I say, save it, especially when it comes to Iran. Let's do this. Look, I am very concerned, super concerned that the generation inheriting this country, built by hard, tough men who worked their fingers to the bone, some of which died on the beaches of Normandy to build something for future generations, that this newer generation may not be able to carry on that legacy. I'm watching young Gen Z libs freak out about something that's not even being discussed, which is being drafted to the war in Iran.
They've been in their mom's basement playing Call of Duty and maybe not tracking on politics or maybe buying what Trump was pushing. And now he's actually saying draft. It may not be probable, but it's possible, right? I mean, at least it's out there. It's not something an American president would ever talk about.
They're not dismissing it.
Right.
That's not going to happen. One, because we don't need to, mostly because it's going to be over before we could possibly process anybody into the military, but also we just don't need it, just like Iraq. But by the way, a tanker with 1 million barrels of oil just passed through the Strait of Hormuz today. Nobody touched it, so that's a really good sign. But 2, and this is my primary concern going far beyond the draft, I don't think a draft will ever be viable again because our populace, our younger populace, is not fit enough. Here, quote, the Pentagon shows that 77% of young Americans would not qualify for military service without a waiver due to being overweight, using drugs, or having mental and physical health problems. In fact, most pigs now are leaner than the average American, if you can believe it. Don't believe me, it says it right there. So fret not, Gen Z. We wouldn't draft you even if we needed you because you wouldn't help us win. And even that aside, Gen Z is the most disagreeable generation that thinks they know absolutely everything. I mean, could you imagine that on a battlefield during a gunfight? But despite their lack of toughness or knowledge or experience in anything, this does not stop them from being one of the most critical demographics of Trump's actions, specifically on Iran. One headline that required a translation for me said, "This ain't no game, bro. Gen Z crashes out over Trump's Iran war." Here's another one. Gen Z really doesn't want to go war. Put that back up. I think they left out a word in that headline. So they can't write either. Yeah, doesn't want to go warring? War? Oh, to war. That's right, they can't write. Again, relax. Most of us who have been at war wouldn't pick you guys for our kickball team, let alone to go to battle with. But let's just take a step back and look at the generational differences. My great-grandparents, my great-grandparents, they lied about their ages to storm the beaches of Normandy. This is back when Americans hated our enemies as much as they hated us. Now, most college kids are protesting for Hamas. They're embracing communism. 80 years ago, remember this guy, the baby vet? This dude lied about his age and enlisted at 12 years old to go shoot Nazis. Saying to a reporter at one point, "I didn't like Hitler to start with." He was 12. Where is that patriotism today? I mean, sure, there's some Gen Zers that would join in a heartbeat. Some are actually currently joining and serving in our military. And to you guys, I salute you. But we're nowhere near the willingness to serve something greater than ourselves these days in this generation. And this really hurts me, especially if you go talk to any of the few remaining World War II vets. You know how they feel?
We haven't got the country we had when I was raised. Not at all. Nobody will have the fun I had. Nobody will have the opportunity I had. It's just not the same. That's not what our boys, that's not what they died for.
And you know what hurts my soul is that man sitting there with a silver star on his chest, pouring with emotion. The sacrifices, all the men that he served with. I mean, he's now passed away recently. But all his life experiences, they won't change a single mind of Gen Z because they're so stuck in their ways, self-consumed with TikTok feeds and whatever, thinking that they know everything about, anything, that they would rather write op-eds about how horrible Trump is and why the war is bad than think for half a second that some of us, my generation, we actually lost a ton of people. I lost a ton of brothers to Iran, and Iran-funded munitions. Again, do I want to go to war? No, I don't. I've been very frank about that from the beginning. Do I want boots on the ground? Absolutely not. Personally, though, look, I'd go shoot IRGC soldiers tomorrow, but I don't want my nation at war. But I do understand that things sometimes we have to do that we don't like. This should have been done 47 years ago, but it wasn't. That's why I keep saying you got to give Trump his timeline here. And we're not there yet. We're not at the 6-week mark. And some 24-year-old purple-haired barista isn't going to convince me otherwise by screaming about the sky about it. Ronald Reagan gave us a speech that talked about the danger of appeasement, which is exactly what we had for the last 25 years, which is how we got here, about what the alternative is. Reagan called it the ultimatum.
But every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then?
People don't talk like that anymore, man. That's the question that I would pose to any of the same Gen Zers. Oh, you don't want to bomb the #1 state-sponsored terror? Okay. What when they attack you or your family? Ironically, the same people our youth voted for caused this problem. Obama garnered overwhelming support from the younger generations while pulling us out of Iraq, which created ISIS, that was funded by pallets of cash that he flew into Tehran. Biden gave sanction relief to Iran that funded their war machine. They didn't build a single road. They didn't build a school or a power plant with that money. Our appeasement, as Ronald Reagan said, funded them building bombs and missiles and drones. Much of which Reagan noted when we were fighting the Cold War, that our enemies are also hearing the political climate here, hoping that will sway our war resolve.
He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us.
Unfortunately, they speak for some of the younger guys now. I'll never live on my knees. As Reagan said, that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people, but my generation and many before it, we will fight for that. With Gen Z? No, they're the most opinionated generation that's barely spent 5 minutes in the workforce. They grew up with actually fighting banned on the playground. They've never been punched in the face. They've never been hit in the face with a dodgeball. They've been told that words are violence and that they deserve a safe space. You think that would survive Normandy? They can't make it through the workday without a nap, and they want to tell Donald Trump and this country how to manage people who chant death to America? No thanks. My generation, I went 7 days with no sleep just in training to go shoot bad guys in the neck, and you need a nap for your 8-hour workday in an air-conditioned office? You see why people like me are just a little bit annoyed about all these kids whining about war that they'll never have to participate in, we're never going to ask them to? When their great-grandparents, when they were the same age as them, even younger, they were flying planes over Germany through gunfire to drop bombs on tanks. And today, this is an actual article. Gen Z in particular are faced with challenges that affect their concentration and well-being, overloaded with information and distractions. This generation has developed work habits that can hinder their efficiencies. Micronaps are the solution to their need for rest and refocusing. Wah. These are the people I'm worried about handing this country over to. They're not ready. They're a bunch of wusses. And everything the generations of mine and the people before, I stood on the shoulders of giants with my military career. It was the greatest honor of my life, and I'm terrified that we're not handing it off to a capable generation. because they've never had a hardship to understand what is worth fighting for. Democrats in particular, less than 25% of Gen Z Democrats are proud to be an American. You know how much that hurts? 65% of Gen Z Republicans. That should be 100%. I say you support the country you live in or go live in another country that you support. Is my support for a conflict in Iran endless? No, it's not. But do I see the need for doing it now? Yes, I'm willing to hold out a little bit longer to wrap this up because it should have been done 47 years ago and it must be done. But I'd like to do it free of the inexperienced 23-year-old peanut gallery that doesn't even know how to do their laundry. Legendary musician, newly minted Outdoor Sportsman of the Year and Michigan Outdoor Hall of Famer, Ted Nugent. I can't think of anybody who loves America more than you, and I'd love to talk to about this.
Well, there is nobody that loves America more than me. And by the way, Carl Higbie, I genuflect at the same altar of truth, logic, common sense, we the people, Declaration of Independence, God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, Ten Commandments, Golden Rule, law and order, work ethic, goodwill, and decency. But do not be distressed, my friend. Ditto, ditto, ditto. You nailed the heartbeat of real America in this 250th year celebration. But the enemy of freedom constantly call me a draft dodger, which is a dirty lie. They're full of hate and they're full of lies. I spend every last Wednesday each month with the heroes of the Vietnam veterans. I have Vietnam veterans and Gulf Store veterans and Marcus Luttrell and the heroes of the military contact me every day, and they thank me for being a we the people activist fighting for the freedoms that their buddies died for. I was invited to Iwo Jima last week with the U.S. Marine Corps. My dog's fetching shit antlers in the other room. But the point is that everything you speak is so irrefutably drenched in evidence. But be not too distraught, because I hang out my kids, my grandkids, people at my concerts. I'm having the greatest concerts of my life, and that is gauged upon the young people in the audience. There are a lot of dirtbags out there, a lot of slovenly, helpless little weenies that don't know why when they turn on the hot water faucet that hot water actually comes out. But with our Ted Nugent Camp for Kids charity, I'm looking these young people in the eyeballs every year by the thousands. And there's a bunch of really good ones that celebrate God's miraculous gift every day. Yeah. And they know that freedom is not free. So we have to address the bad and the ugly, but do not forget there's a lot of really good out there. And I meet them every day, because when they come up to Uncle Ted and thank me, I'm talking kids. I'm talking old guys, World War II vets. Yeah. I'm so humbled and honored that they call me. We just lost Jack Thomasian in Detroit, almost 98 years old, wow, who was a World War II vet. And on his deathbed, his grandson called me, and Jack asked for me to say hello before he dies. Carl, is there a more powerful salute that I'm on the right track for God, family, and country than for those veterans to call the dirty guitar player from Detroit? So you're right on the money. But I do believe there's a wake-up call. We have a commander-in-chief that proves it a wake-up call. Remember, he got the highest votes of young people. So there is light at the end of an otherwise toilet-flushing tunnel in America, thanks to the Democrats and the liberals and the communists and the Antifa goofball freaks out there. So you're right on the money, and I'm with you all the way. And thank you for allowing me to comment, because I'm in touch with these great people, and there's still more good guys than there are bad guys.
I sure hope you're right, sir. I just the media tells a slightly different picture, but this is my concern for this generation. Roll this.
What's your message to straight white conservative men?
Listen to minorities, listen to women, listen to people who are trying to educate you. Don't live in ignorance just because it's easy.
What is a woman?
That sounds like a loaded.
This is the people I'm talking about.
I know. Carl, it's painful, but you have to admit, it's hysterical, because God loves us that he has put the enemy's voice and face in those freaks. Thank you, God, for identifying the enemies of Ted Nugent to look and sound like that. And that is the ultimate depiction of the division in America. People who celebrate work ethic, productivity. In our Camp for Kids, these young boys and girls come from all over the world to go to Ted Nugent's charity Children, and they learn how to turn fish into family-sized portions, how to turn a deer into food, how to trap and make sure you balance nature for real biodiversity, how to start a fire, how to provide for the family, how to fire a gun and protect their family. So that self-sufficient, rugged individual mantra and lifestyle, it is alive and well. We just have to spread it more. Our Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild TV show has a core audience of young people. I just spent the day with a great black man named King Pedford and his beautiful wife. Came in to celebrate the outdoor lifestyle and the wonders of the turkey season, and his connection with inner city black kids reflects the exact thing I'm telling you. There is a wake-up call happening because slovenliness and dependency is so unfulfilling that your instinct will drive even the worst among us to pursue independence and self-sufficiency. So I salute that movement, and I pray there's more of it.
Well, Ted, that's why we had you on, because you're part of the solution, brother. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Godspeed, real America.
All right. Well, coming up, speaking of not freedom, Connecticut Democrats are ramming through a new gun ban targeting one of the most popular pistols ever sold, steamrolling Republican opposition, obviously, because there's not that many. Second Amendment concerns are big, though. We got 2A Tuesday coming up in just a bit. But first, new questions in the murder of Charlie Kirk. Court documents now claim the bullet may or may not, it's in an inconclusive match to the alleged rifle. What does this mean for the trial? Our legal panel is going to sound off next.
This smart home is going to the Hoyam family so they can live an independent life with their catastrophic injuries.
The whole house is just set up in a perfect way. All of the normal complications of being in a chair. This place is a huge load off for that. The things that Tunnel to Towers Foundation has done is just a lot more than you would ever expect to get in your entire life.
Join us in supporting our nation's heroes and their families. It only takes $11 a month. Go to T2T.org now.
During the Omaha Steaks Spring Savings Event, prices are going down. Save up to 50% with entrees about $5 per serving. Order now to get 8 burgers free. This spring, watch the prices fall at omahasteaks.com/TV.
Spring showers bring the Spring Waterproof Sale at Lumber Liquidators. The absolute best selection of kid-proof, pet-proof, waterproof flooring. Over 90 varieties in stock and priced to move. Like Tranquility by Corlux Athens Oak, slashed down to 89 cents a square foot. Or Corlux Silver County Birch for $119 a square foot. The Spring Waterproof Sale now through April 7th. Shop the best selection of waterproof flooring in stores nationwide or online at lumberliquidators.com.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
All right. New potential issues in the case surrounding the murder of Charlie Kirk and the bullet. According to the defense, the analysis from the ATF found that the bullet match with the rifle that killed Charlie Kirk was inconclusive. Keep in mind, if you can't match the bullet to the rifle in a court of law with evidence, all evidence associated with it could actually become inadmissible. And now Robinson's attorneys are asking to delay the hearing, arguing they need more time as these forensic inconsistencies come into focus. This is huge concerns that could actually, in worst case scenario, could lead to this case being thrown out. Former federal prosecutor Doug Burns and Newsmax legal analyst Jay Town. Jay, bad news. This could remove a huge prospect for the prosecution.
So Carl, respectfully, I'll tell you that the defense lawyer's motion and the headlines that we're seeing are not actually what is in the ATF report. The ATF does not say that the bullet that was found, the fragmented round, it does not match the rifle. What they said is they're inconclusive. Unable to identify. But I'll guarantee you this. That fragmented round is a 30 caliber class round, or else the defense counsel would have mentioned that it was identified as not. It's one of the easiest things for the ATF to do. It's in all their reports, what caliber round. Remember, the rifle that was found with Tyler Robinson's DNA on it, with the cartridges had his DNA on it, that was a 30-06. That fires a 30 caliber class round. I don't think this is a nothing burger to me as someone who has prosecuted hundreds of murders in my career.
Yeah, well, Doug, but here's the thing, real quick for the audience. When a bullet leaves a barrel, it rotates a little bit with the rifling in the barrel, which puts the equivalent of a ballistic fingerprint that is unlike any other gun. So it you know, when the soft tip bullet hits the target, it mushrooms out, but the copper jacket maintains these impressions.
Right.
It's for the ATF, though. I figure this is like kind of a fumble for the ATF. Like, guys, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, you're supposed to be the foremost authority on matching these things, and you were inconclusive?
Well, working off of Jay's point, I mean, the point is there's a big difference between inconclusive and, oh, it doesn't match and all of that. They're running another test right now. I agree with you that it does seem like a little bit of a fumble. But at the same time, looking at this thing from 30,000 feet, also, there's tons and tons of other evidence that are going to time to this. So the point is, you know, I understand everybody's concern about this preliminary report that it's inconclusive, but at the same time, I agree with Jay. I do not think it's going to lead to any big dramatic developments in this case, Carl.
I hope the case stays on track here, because that would be a major fumble. I want to get to Supreme Court, okay? So obviously Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't know what a woman is. She's the one who voted against us. But 8-1, they basically said, hey, if you have Christian beliefs and you're a therapist or a counselor or something like that, the state of Colorado had banned people from trying to say, hey, you're not actually trans, or you might not be gay. And that apparently, according to the Supreme Court, and I agree with this, 8-1, that person can talk a child out of those things, Jay.
Yeah, it's a First Amendment violation. And, you know, this is, and what, you know, you mentioned Justice Brown, right? 8-1 decision here. She was the only dissent. And really, the irony is that she, in her dissent, embraces the suppression of dissenting views in her dissenting opinion, right? So the state of Colorado and the state legislature and a federal judge have all said, well, it's perfectly fine. Conversion therapy is completely banned, and you can't talk kids out of what you just described, Carl. You know, because they know better than the mental health professionals, just like Justice Brown.
Yeah.
I was glad the majority took her to task. Even Justin Kagan took her to task of how absurd her dissenting opinion was.
I know a lot of people are getting tired of KGB or whatever the name, KBJ. All right, so here's another one, Doug. Supreme Court set to hear arguments tomorrow on birthright citizenship, which I'm pretty sure that's going to be our open tomorrow. The justices will weigh whether people born in this country to parents who are here illegally, you know, as the Constitution says, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, would actually get automatic citizenship.
Well, it's interesting because the left media, you know, does not report the subject to the jurisdiction thereof that you just reported. They just conveniently omit that. But the fact of the matter is, I find it rich and unbelievably ironic. Look at Antonin Scalia, the late great justice. He believed in textualism. You look at the text. The left ripped him over and over for decades. You have to look at the context, not just the text. Now, when it suits them, it says in the 14th Amendment, if you're born here, you're a citizen. They're like, you don't need to look at any context. You don't need to look beyond the plain words. All of a sudden, they're Scalia disciples. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and obviously, as people leave out too, that the intent of that was for slaves who were brought here against their will, not randomly.
Right. Overturned Dred Scott.
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Anyway, J-Town, Doug Burns, we had a lot to break down today, but I appreciate both of you guys.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, coming up, will President Trump disrupt Congress's spring break by calling a rare but legal special session to end the DHS shutdown? I say, send it. Details next.
Hi, I'm Katrina Ziff. I've worked on the red carpet, I've worked at Vogue magazine, and now I work at Newsmax, and I couldn't be happier because it's all about bringing the most important stories in the world directly to you.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Our #1 draft pick for colon cancer screening is the new Cologuard Plus test. With no prep and no time off work, it's got franchise player written all over it.
The Cologuard Plus test is not for those at high risk. False positive and negative results may occur.
In 2024, the IRS flagged nearly 2 million tax returns for possible identity fraud.
Someone stole my Social Security number and filed a tax return in my name, and I'm a CPA.
Your tax forms have all the personal information needed to commit identity theft, and you're not the only one with a copy, which makes you vulnerable. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats others could miss. And if your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it, guaranteed. Enroll now.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Age-old question, is our government still of, by, and for the people? By all accounts today, I would say probably not. And a prime example being the unanimous Senate DHS funding package agreed to last week in the middle of the night, so they couldn't, get any opposition. Then they could jet set off to No King's Protest or Disney World, like wherever they wanted to go. And DHS remains unfunded because the House will not pass what the Senate agreed to, and the Senate will not pass what the House agreed to because they hate each other. President Trump is considering using his constitutional authority to call a special session of Congress, though, to end the DHS shutdown. I think he should. We noted this last week. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. The president may, on extraordinary occasion, longest shutdown ever, I would call that extraordinary, convene both houses or either of them in a case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment. He may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. I say leave him in there for the rest of your term. Colonel Alan West, Executive Director of American Constitutional Rights Union. Sir, I look at this and I'm like, get him back to work. Why is Lindsey Graham at Disney World?
No, you're absolutely right. It's good to be with you, Carl. And, one of the things I think should happen if these legislators decide that they are going to prevent American citizens from having a paycheck, they shouldn't have a paycheck either. They should not be able to go off to Disneyland or these type of places. They need to have some skin in the game, and there has to be consequences. And you just enumerated out of the Article 2 of the Constitution a power given to the executive branch because we do have a system of checks and balances to bring the legislators back and tell them to solve this. because this is not being for the people. It is about being for your own political ideology or for your own agenda. And the American people should not be suffering from this, to being the TSA agents, and the greater American people should not be suffering from this by a degradation of their safety and security.
Yeah, I mean, you were in Congress yourself, so you know this better than anybody. But President Trump today also signing an executive order ordering citizenship verification for federal elections and securing mail-in ballot procedures through the USPS. Roll this.
I'm very happy to be signing the voter integrity, and I think it's going to be really great. Remember, it's about voter integrity. We want to have honest voting in our country, because if you don't have honest voting, you can't have really a nation.
Really, honestly, like this is what I love about this guy, is in like the crackpot fest of our legislature right now, where they can't do anything. He's just like, I'm going to sign an executive order and force someone to challenge it in court, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you go back to April of 2020, Eric Holder, who was then in charge of the Democrat redistricting process, he wrote an article in Time magazine that said how coronavirus should permanently change elections in America. Whether you talk about mail-in ballots. Now, the understanding is that you have absentee ballots. If you cannot vote in person, being it doing early voting on election day, you can file for an absentee ballot. It has to have signature verification. But what the left is talking about is just mailing ballots out to addresses. We have not had, registration roll review in quite some time. And so a lot of these addresses are quite false. So we need to get back to understand what absentee balloting really is, and drop this term about mail-in balloting. But again, this is an 80% issue with the American people. And I think 60% of the American people want this to be done before the midterm elections. And do the Democrats stand in the way of the Save America Act? That should be a huge midterm election issue.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I want to go over to Virginia, because this is interesting. Sweeping liberal win, obviously, in the last election. They have passed, I think, 85 new tax cuts. And now there's this redistricting fight around there. Okay, so you're having huge Republican. Look at the top 5 districts are all Republican turnouts. Blue districts are not having the same turnout. This could be an actual shift back to a Glenn Youngkin style red, light purple Virginia.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny, and it's quite hypocritical that because of what we did down here in Texas, the left wants to, turn up the heat on this, but they're doing it purely for political reasons. Here in Texas, we looked at the trends in the voting, and we aligned our congressional districts thereof. But what they're trying to do is punish Republicans and not have any Republican representation pretty much in any of these states. You look at some of these states, you have 0 Republican legislative representation. And so that is not what we, our founding fathers want to have, especially as we, Connecticut, you're part of that, many of those New England states. So I think that this is important. Republicans have to get out. Every election matters, and we see that right now in Virginia.
Big time. Colonel Allen West, we appreciate it. All right, coming up, fired for his faith. An NBA player canned by his team for Christian values. Not a DUI, not domestic violence, or even drugs. Culture Clash next.
I'm John Glasgow, and whether the story is right here in New York City in a courthouse or at the border wall in Arizona, we're going to be boots on the ground to bring you all the facts to make sure that you get the story straight, because that's what's important to us right here at Newsmax.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED. Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED, then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Support your long-term health with Fatty 15, the science-backed, award-winning Pure C15 supplement.
My skin, my mood, my sleep, all of it has been improved by this little product right here, Fatty 15.
Discover more at fatty15.com.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a goldmine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Well, just another reason why I don't watch these types of sports, but Chicago Bulls has waived and basically gotten rid of Jaden Ivey. He posted videos sharing his religion and called out the NBA for celebrating Pride Month. So the Bulls released a statement saying the team has waived guard Jaden Ivey due to the conduct detrimental to the team. Right. So let me get this straight. The NBA has domestic abusers, DUIs, drug charges, and even people accused of rape still on their roster playing ball. But a religious statement expressing discontent over personal feelings over Pride Month? That's apparently a bridge too far. I'd make it make sense. Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe and host of Tony Katz Today, Tony Katz. Kay, this makes me want to, I don't know, commit violence.
I mean, it's so emblematic of everything that we have to deal with today as Christians. You know, we're the most persecuted group of people in the world anyway. And then right here at home, we have someone who, you know, all he did was express his own take on religion. All he did was make a stand for himself. And now he has to lose his job. It's pathetic. It's so weak. And I have a horrible feeling this is going to bounce back really, really hard. Not just on, I don't even know what the team is because I don't really follow.
Bulls.
Okay, cool. But
yeah.
I really think this is going to bounce back really hard on the NBA in general because they really need to up their standards across the board. Yeah, and I'm here for it.
Tony?
I don't think any of this bounces back in the NBA at all. And the reason I don't think it bounces back in the NBA, because the fan base isn't going to go anywhere. The fan base isn't going to go into revolt. People are still going to show up to the games. People are still going to watch the games. I think the question is, what has the NBA actually said here? And it seems that the Chicago Bulls have said, shut up and dribble. And if they're now going to be the people of shut up and dribble, that changes the game everywhere and in all places. If we're going to argue case point, it should be noted that Christians are persecuted. Christians are the last group that you're always allowed to make fun of at all times, no question. And I say this as the Jewish guy. It's absolutely true. It happens constantly and consistently. Nothing ever happens to Steve Kerr when he talks madness about the Second Amendment, and he has his own personal backstory, and it is a serious story, but I've got my own personal backstory, and I find a lot of his commentaries offensive. Greg Popovich, the former coach of the Spurs, same exact thing with his radical leftism, and that was never, ever an issue. Jaden Ivey never said he wouldn't play with players, he wouldn't show up. He never said any of those things. He made a statement on Instagram, and if the NBA is going to say shut up and dribble, well, I want to see that applied everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You know a scary amount about sports, Tony. All right, Kate, Zorhan Mamdani announced his latest and greatest social project, free child care for New York City workers. Roll this.
New York City's first ever on-site child care program for municipal employees. This is a site that will be 100% free with the child care that it provides.
Side note, that's the first time he's ever needed to wear a hard hat in his entire life. He's actually never worn gloves. But that sounds nice, but it's a $2.3 million price tag today, which makes it about $60,000 per kid, which is almost 3 times the cost of regular daycare for the rest of us.
Wait, are you telling me that a Democrat had an idea that sounds really good on paper and most people won't dig into the actual background on it and how it's going to cost them huge amounts of money and probably never come to fruition or do what it says it's going to do on the tin? No way. Really? I so don't expect that after having lived in California for years, where every Democrat says, everything's going to be amazing and we're going to make everything great. We're going to fix everything. And then really they just line the pockets of their friends who run the nonprofits who are supposed to fix the thing. Listen, it's the same thing that I say to all of my British friends and even my American friends who are like, well, don't you have like free healthcare in the UK? No, we don't have free healthcare in the UK. We pay for it with our taxes. None of it is free. And I guarantee in the same way this is just going to enrich Mamdani, his friends, whatever. It's not real.
And you wait like 9 months for a doctor to check out your knee, and by that time your leg falls off. So that's great.
I was going to say, if you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. But in Canada, they will offer you suicide for back pain. Speaking of Mamdani, he decided to wish everyone a happy Trans Visibility Day, writing in part, Tony, today is Trans Visibility Day. Your existence is not up for debate. Your lives are not a political issue. We're fighting for a city where every trans New Yorker can live openly, safely, and with joy. Yet I couldn't help but notice, Tony, there was not a single word from him about the 83-year-old veteran who was pushed onto the subway tracks and died by an illegal alien, by the way.
Isn't this the same guy who, when a man attacked cops, he went to go visit the attacker? This is who he is. You know, the idea of a Trans Visibility Day. Allow me to be clear. We see, and we're very bothered by culturally what we see when you go after children. But if you take a look at his tweet, he said something very odd. He said, you know, fighting for LGBTQIA, if you go back to the tweet there. And allow me to be clear with just a little bit of history here, and people can challenge me all they want. When people who are gay fought at Stonewall to be able to have the right to hold the hand of the person they love walking down the street, the T was never, ever, ever, ever a part of the conversation. And if the L, the G, and the B want to do us all a favor, because we're all in favor of it, drop the T immediately. It's political. It's political sloganeering. We don't want any part of it. We certainly don't want it for our kids. The L, the G, and the P, when do we go get, and the B, when do we go get coffee? We're all good to go. The T is a political sloganeering. It is violence against children, and nobody in those days was fighting for that.
But also that's where you get the biggest freak shows and an extremely high rate of not only suicide, but also child molestation and a lot of things like that. So just pointing out the statistics, I know, and if someone has a problem with it, they can talk to me. But also, remember Doge exposed some insane stuff, Kay? We're wasting taxpayer dollars on trans mice. Well, it turns out now that Elon's gone, that study is being funded again, receiving $500,000 this time to fine-tune male hormones for women who identify as men. I mean, this is why Elon left.
Yeah, I'm really not surprised that this is why he left. I also just, like, there's part of me, the conspiracy theorist in my brain is like, you know what? Maybe that money isn't going towards something so stupid. Maybe it's actually just a cover for some, like, weird CIA program. Please let that be it. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I think all of us sitting here, everyone in the world, if they were going to investigate sort of like what's making the frogs gay, as Alex Jones used to joke about, then it turned out to be real. I think all of us would sit there and go, yeah, we probably want to know something about that. That would be better than this. That is the insanity that we live in now, guys. That would be better than this.
Okay, I
don't know.
will say,
I'm just embarrassed.
none of that money is going to that. That's why they charge us $200,000 for a hammer. That goes to weird CIA projects. This actually goes to tranny mice. Okay, Tony, pleasure as always.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, coming up, a Minnesota lawmaker says he owns guns, but apparently knows very little, like very, very little about them. We got 2A Tuesday coming up next.
Hi, I'm Sally with SellMyPolicy.com, the fast concierge service here to help you sell your life insurance policy for cash now. Our experienced team makes it fast and easy for you to get your offer. Use the money however you want. Cover healthcare costs, pay off debt, or take the trip of a lifetime. Use the funds for supplemental retirement income, investments, or home improvements, or give money to loved ones now rather than later. John sold his policy for $590,000 in cash, which he used to pay for health care. And Cheryl sold her policy for $90,000 in cash and used it to supplement her retirement income. If you are over 65 with a life insurance policy of $100,000 of coverage up to $50 million of coverage, then you may qualify. With Sell My Policy, some people choose to sell all or just part of their policy so they can access cash now while also keeping coverage in place for their loved ones.
It's easy to find out what your policy could be worth today. Call 800-961-7355. That's 800-961-7355. Or visit sellmypolicy.com.
Why lapse or surrender your policy? Sell it and you can stop making premium payments. You may receive substantially more cash than what your insurance carrier will offer. Plus, you'll get paid fast. Arthur sold his policy for $84,000 in cash, which he used to help reduce his debt. SellMyPolicy.com has a large network of funders. That means more money in your pocket. If you or a loved one has a policy, call now. Trusted by seniors, there's no obligation to sell. Find out what your policy is worth today.
Fast and free with Sell My Policy.
Talk with a policy expert now to see how much cash you could receive. Call 800-961-7355. That's 800-961-7355. Or visit sellmypolicy.com. Sellmypolicy.com.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
2A Tuesday, let's do some gun stuff. My home state, unabashedly the Socialist Republic of Connecticut, is one step closer to basically banning Glocks, the manufacturer that sells 3 of the top 6 pistols in the U.S. Look, I'm a SIG guy to the bone. I'd never own a Glock. If you wouldn't catch me dead owning a Glock. I still think they should be allowed. But why are they banning them? Because they can be converted into fully automatic weapons, which is an illegal procedure already. Connecticut Democrats and their brain trust claim that Glock has already made such modifications in California and Germany to prevent them from being converted. This should be challenged immediately. It's so incoherent. I hope it gets overturned. Cam Edwards, host of the fantastic podcast Cam and Co., one of the best on bearing arms itself. Cam, look, this is just insane. They banned ARs. Now they're coming for the Glocks. What next? Everything else?
Yes. I mean, bottom line, yes. If they can get away with this, then sure. Next time it won't be striker-fired pistols. It'll be, all semi-automatic pistols. And I want to go back to something you said, Carl. This lawmaker says that the Glock already changed their design to comply with California and German law. So Glock didn't do that. Glock did introduce the V series late last year. You can say that this was probably a response to the lawsuits that have been filed and maybe even California's law. But if it was good enough for California, why isn't it good enough for Connecticut? I don't understand this. I really don't get what this lawmaker's is claiming here.
But the other thing, too, is if you can ban this gun, if you can ban ARs, which I know is going to the Supreme Court hopefully soon, then you can ban anything. You can take my cannon, which doesn't even require a background check. I have 3 of them. One leftist, though, in Minnesota doesn't think that you and I need an AR-15 for hunting purposes, Cam, because the founding fathers, that's what they did. They came back from a hunt. Oh, no, they came back from liberating a nation. They say that the AR-15 is too powerful. Roll this.
I grew up hunting. I'm a gun owner. I don't know if it surprises anybody, but this side of the aisle does have quite a few gun owners. No purpose in bringing an assault weapon out hunting deer. I would rather have the deer to eat than have it blown apart.
That guy is also an idiot because in war, look, I've had to shoot people multiple times with an M4, which is the military equivalent of the AR, because the .223 caliber is so small. It's basically a 22 moving 2,900 feet per second. You guys know at home that the AR fires a round that is far less powerful. Here, look, here are the two. A shotgun on one side, a .223 on the other side. Which one would you rather get shot by? I mean, the other thing too, Cam, and I have to note this, sorry for monologuing on here, blue states like Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Washington, they actually ban the AR-15 and the .223 round from hunting deer because it's not powerful enough to kill them. So they are saying it's too powerful and we need to ban it for that, but we're also banned it because it's not powerful enough to kill deer.
It's Schrodinger's firearm, I guess, right? Whether it's too powerful or not powerful enough, I guess depends on what gun control law you're trying to pass at the time, right? Yeah, this guy's an idiot. I mean, he absolutely is. And, bottom line is the Second Amendment protects hunting, but the Second Amendment isn't about hunting.
No.
And if he has any doubt about that, he should go back and read the Federalist Papers. He should go read a history book. The reason why we have the Second Amendment is because the Founding Fathers were concerned about a tyrannical government. They wanted an armed populace able to defend itself and able to, quite frankly, to prevent the formation of a tyrannical government.
Yes, hence the word militia being in there, which well-armed. Speaking of well-armed, we had a citizen fight off 3 attackers, and I know you do a fantastic part of your podcast every day about somebody in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. Well, this guy was attacked at a Maryland mall, which is tough to get a permit there, and the would-be victim pulled his gun. Unfortunately, he only got him in the wrist, so they will live. But I'm a center mass sort of guy myself. But this is why people carry guns.
Absolutely. And, you're right. We cover stories like this every day at Bearing Arms on the Cam and Company podcast. And, you look at that headline, multiple assailants, right? So in Maryland, you're restricted to a 10-round magazine. And I've heard gun control advocates say, well, the average offensive gun use is 2 shots, right? That's all. Well, no one can guarantee that you're going to be the victim of an average violent crime, right? You don't know if it's going to be 1 attacker, 2 attackers, 10 attackers. And this is why these arbitrary limits, or 10 dogs, absolutely, right? So this is why the arbitrary limits on carrying capacity are frankly nonsensical as well as unconstitutional.
Real quick, I got about 30 seconds for you, Cam. Canadians, today was the deadline to declare any firearms that the overlords said they can't have, and basically Canada just gave them the finger, was like, we're not doing this.
Yeah, so last week, the Canadian government said that about 51,000 firearms had been turned in. They were anticipating about 136,000, so a little bit more than a third of what they were anticipating, but there are estimated to be at least 1 million of these firearms owned by Canadian citizens. So the fact that, they've turned in, about 5% of these guns, that is a huge middle finger from our neighbors to the north.
And you know what's interesting? In the next block, we got something that may actually amount to part of Canada becoming the 51st state. So, Cam, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Canada, don't give up your guns. At least part of you might have hope to have the Second Amendment next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
We're in a very holy time of the year. We think in terms of a deliverance.
This is wishy-washy as the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time. This is the home of Galena. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
This Passover, if you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials and matzah for the Passover holy day. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
Homeowners ask me all the time, do gutter guards really work?
Leaf Filter certainly does. In our testing, Leaf Filter handled double the rain of common hood-style guards.
It's Homes approved. Call 877-77-HOMES or visit leaffilter.com/homes.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
My accountant, who uses unsecured email, has all my tax info.
Tax forms have all the personal info thieves need to steal your identity. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
Tens of thousands of residents of America's attic, Canada, from the province of Alberta are ready to secede from that country. Alberta separatist movement claims that they have met the threshold for the 177,000 signatures, actually it's 177,732 signatures, to trigger a ballot referendum for their own independence. This is happening, folks. Once the signatures have been confirmed by elections, the question could be added, or should be added at this point, to the October 19th referendum. The question is simple. Do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada and become an independent state, or we could let them be part of America? There's polling that suggests that this referendum will pass. Like, look, this is fantastic. We could trade Illinois and pick up. It would be great. And J.B. Pritzker can just waltz or whatever he does to move.
Yeah. There's great people in those states. And I feel bad for conservatives that live in places like Canada and France. There's great people that live in these places.
And they supply
have
stuff.
horrible governments.
Yeah.
It's just scary.
Good luck, Alberta.
Carl,
we're rooting for you.
Yeah, we're rooting for you, Alberta. Carl, good to see you.
Word.